Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something truly special, not just history, but a masterclass in ethics from nearly 1,000 years ago.
That's right. We're focusing on Imam Al-Ghazali's huge work, Ihyâ'ü Ulûmi'd-Dîn, the revival of the religious sciences, specifically one section.
Kitabul Kesb ve Ma'ash ve Tikar, the book of earning, livelihood, and trade.
Exactly. And it's much more than just, financial tips. It's a whole ethical system for integrating your spiritual life with the tough world of business.
Right. So our goal here is to pull out these core ideas of halal earnings, lawful, ethical ways to make a living, and sort of hold them up against our world today.
Especially against modern capitalism with its constant push for more growth, more stuff.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why should we care? I mean, why does an 11th century text still speak so directly to, say, 21st century corporate ethics?
Because Ghazali does something quite radical. He takes earning money, which we often see as just, necessary, secular.
Yeah, just what you do.
And he elevates it, makes it a potential act of worship, ibadah.
An act of worship. How does that work?
He defines halal kazan's lawful earnings as not just, technically legal. It has to be legal plus absolute honesty. No cutting corners.
So getting a paycheck isn't the whole story. The way you earn it matters spiritually.
Profoundly. There's a key hadith, a saying mentioned in the sources. Seeking lawful earnings is an obligation of farz upon every Muslim.
An obligation, like prayer.
It's ranked right up there, second only to the other mandatory duties. Think about that.
Wow.
And the logic is clear. If your earnings are pure, your spiritual life, your worship, it's built on a solid foundation. But if the earnings are haram, unlawful,
it taints everything else.
Exactly. Ghazali uses this powerful metaphor. Imagine a building. If the foundation, the money that sustains you, is corrupt, how can the upper floors, your prayers, your fasting be sound? They can't.
That leads straight to intention, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If earning is worship, your motive, your niyat, it can't just be about getting rich.
Absolutely not. Ghazali is very clear on this. Pure intentions are crucial.
What counts as pure then?
He lists a few. Providing for yourself and your family. Fulfilling that duty. That's one.
Okay, makes sense.
2, serving society, contributing, not needing to rely on charity. And 3, using wealth for good things, expressing gratitude to God.
But not just stacking up cash for its own sake.
That's the danger zone. The moment it becomes just about accumulation, that's where Ghazali warns you're heading towards spiritual trouble. The intention has to look outwards, benefit others, not just yourself.
Okay, so intention is the spiritual bedrock. Let's get practical. How does this translate into day-to-day business? What are the rules of the road in the marketplace, according to Ghazali?
He lays out 3 main pillars for ethical conduct. First up, honesty, durustluk.
Which means?
Absolute truth. In what you say and what you do, no lying, no cheating. And specifically, no shortchanging people on weights and measures. The Quran itself warns very strongly against that.
Right.
And here's a key point. Sellers must disclose defects. If you know something's faulty, you have an ethical duty to tell the buyer. Malen kusurunu söylemek.
No hiding the flaws. Okay, what's pillar 2?
Trust. Eminent. Reliability.
So, keeping your word.
Yes, and respecting the rights and property of everyone you deal with, customers, suppliers, partners. Breaking trust, especially in a partnership, Ghazali considers a serious violation of Kul Hakkı,
Which is?
the rights of other people. Debts you owe directly to other individuals, not just to God. And those debts, they say, follow you.
Heavy stuff. Okay, pillar 3.
Justice. Adalay. And this one feels like it's about the bigger picture, the market system itself.
How so?
It prohibits things that mess with fair market equilibrium. So no manipulating prices, no hoarding goods to create artificial shortages. That's stakülük.
Ah, okay.
And no monopolies, tegalşılık. Ghazali argues that gaining wealth unjustly like this doesn't just hurt one person, it actually damages the whole social fabric, the community's stability.
Okay. Honesty, trust, justice. Seems straightforward enough, but you mentioned earlier Ghazali pushes beyond this.
He does, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think. He draws this critical distinction that challenges our modern, often legalistic view of ethics.
How so?
It's the difference between justice adalet and excellence ihsan.
Justice versus excellence. Explain that.
Okay, so adalet, justice, that's the minimum standard. It's the letter of the law, the visible fairness. You paid the agreed price. I gave you the exact agreed quantity. It's transactional.
Filing the rules.
Right. And sticking just to adalet basically saves you from punishment from blame.
Yeah.
It's the ethical floor. You haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily make you virtuous. It doesn't guarantee spiritual reward or, salvation. For that, you need Ihsân.
Excellent. Okay, so what does that look like in practice? If justice is the floor, what's the ceiling?
Ihsân is about going beyond the bare minimum. It's about generosity, grace, virtue.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so in a sale, it might mean being easygoing, not haggling over every last penny, or being lenient if someone owes you money and is struggling to pay.
So less rigid.
Exactly. The sources even tell stories about some deeply pious merchants back then. They'd first make absolutely sure the price was fair, hitting that at a late standard, right?
Meticulously fair.
Yes. And then, after agreeing on the just price, they would deliberately give the seller extra money, just out of generosity. That's Ihsân.
Wow. That's quite something. But okay, let's be real. In today's global market, super competitive. If I run my business on Ihsân, always giving concessions, taking lower margins, not pushing for the best deal, isn't that just asking to go broke?
That's the modern calculus, isn't it? But Ghazali would flip that. He'd question the assumption that maximizing profit has to be the #1 goal above all else.
You'd say there's a different kind of profit.
Precisely. The spiritual reward, the trust you build, the good reputation earned through Ihsân, he'd see that as a form of capital that's ultimately far more valuable than just money.
So it's about balancing, what, fairness and generosity?
Yes. Balancing the transactional fairness of Adalay with the relational generosity of Ihsân. Ghazali believed that if you consistently strive for Ihsân, the material side will likely take care of itself, but more importantly, you're protected from the moral rot that comes with pure greed.
It shifts the whole goalpost from being the richest to being the most trustworthy, maybe?
You got it. That's a great way to put it. But obviously, that requires immense internal strength, right? Which brings us neatly to the internal struggle, managing that balance inside yourself.
Right, the inner moral landscape.
Ghazali talks about this crucial balance, Kesb versus Tevekkül.
Effort and reliance.
Exactly. Kesb is the work, the striving, doing your part. Tevekkül is trusting in God for the actual outcome. True reliance, he says, shields you from obsessive greed hers, and also from crushing stress. You do your best, but you let go of the result.
But it's not an excuse to be lazy.
No way. He explicitly calls out laziness, tembalik, that tries to disguise itself as pious reliance. You absolutely have to put in the effort first. Tie your camel, as the saying goes.
And when people lose that balance, that's when greed takes over.
That's the slippery slope. That excessive greed, hers, it's fueled by hubbul mal.
Love of wealth.
Yes. And Ghazali has this famous metaphor for wealth, mal. He says it's like a snake.
A snake.
Yeah. It contains both deadly poison sumum and a potential antidote, a cure tiriac. It all depends on how you handle it. Your intention, what you do with it, determines whether you get poisoned or healed.
That's powerful. And what really struck me from the sources was that Ghazali pointed to something potentially even more corrosive than just loving money.
Ah, yes. He identified the two great temptations. Love of wealth, hubbul mal, is one, but the other, love of status, reputation, ulûka.
Why is that one potentially worse?
Because, as Ghazali saw it, it's often more subtle, and it gives the owner something incredible. Ownership of hearts, kulubun mulku.
Ownership of hearts, what does that mean?
Love of money lets you control things, assets. But love of status, craving that reputation and influence, lets you control people. Free people who willingly submit to you, admire you, follow you, maybe not because you're right, but because you have status.
It warps relationship.
Totally. It replaces genuine connection and worth with appearance and influence. Really dangerous.
So this internal critique of greed and status, it naturally leads outwards, doesn't it, to a critique of economic systems built on those things.
Exactly. Let's pivot to that. How do these 11th century principles really clash with our modern economic models?
Starting with the big one, interest.
Faiz, usury. Ghazali's prohibition is absolute, and frankly, it's aimed squarely at the heart of modern finance. He saw interest-based lending as fundamentally destructive to social justice.
How come? I mean, if I lend money, isn't there risk? Shouldn't I get something back for that risk? That's the modern argument.
Ghazali would say, yes, there's risk in trade. A merchant invests, buys goods, transports them. They might lose everything. That profit is legitimate because risk is shared, effort is involved.
But interest is different.
He argues faiz, guaranteed interest, is different because it shifts all the risk onto the borrower. The lender gets a guaranteed return no matter if the borrower's venture succeeds or fails. He saw this as inherently unfair, creating massive wealth gaps and undermining the whole point of trade based on mutual effort and shared risk.
Okay, that's a fundamental challenge. What else?
Well, the whole culture of consumption, modern economics often thrives on creating new needs, encouraging us to constantly want more.
Buy. Yeah.
Ghazali champions the opposite. Qanat, contentment. Living within your means, focusing on necessities, qadri velsiv, and actively avoiding waste is rough. The moment you start chasing wants instead of needs, you're opening the door to spiritual risk.
It's a radically different mindset.
Yeah.
Okay, the most mind-bending idea, the one that really stopped me in my tracks, was this paradox of Geflet.
Yes. Spiritual apathy or short-sightedness. This is really where Ghazali offers a profound, almost unsettling critique.
Explain it. The idea that the world only functions because people are spiritually unaware.
Pretty much. He observed the complexity of the world commerce, cities, supply chains, all of it, and concluded, paradoxically, that this whole massive system is kept running by the very things he warns against. The spiritual apathy, the gaflet, and the greed, the hars of most people involved.
Wait, so you're saying if everyone suddenly became spiritually enlightened, achieved Ihsan and Qanat, the global economy would just stop?
That's Ghazali's implication. If people were truly wise, using their intellect, a call guided by spiritual purpose, their priorities would shift dramatically. They'd focus on the afterlife, minimize consumption, stop chasing status.
And the engine of the economy, ambition, growth, competition would just seize up.
Exactly. So modern economic systems, almost by design, seem to rely on what Ghazali would diagnose as a spiritual sickness, a fundamental lack of foresight about what truly matters. It's a powerful counter-narrative to purely materialist views of progress.
That's a huge challenge. And yet, despite this deep critique, you can still see connections, right? His ideas on honesty, justice, they do resonate with modern things like CSR.
Absolutely. Rızk and Adale provide a solid moral foundation for things like corporate social responsibility, ethical investing, fair trade movements. They align perfectly.
But just doing CSR isn't enough to meet Ghazali's full standard.
Not even close. To truly walk that path, you need to embrace vira, spiritual scrupulousness. It's like the ultimate ethical defense mechanism.
Going beyond just avoiding what's clearly illegal or forbidden.
Way beyond. Vira means actively avoiding things that are merely doubtful shifali, creating a buffer zone.
Yeah.
You don't just avoid the cliff edge, you stay well back from it, because the gray area is where you slip.
Okay. And within that scrupulousness, is there a hierarchy? Like some areas need even more caution.
Yes. The highest level of caution, the absolute strictest standard, must be applied to kut, food.
Food. Why food above everything else?
Because the spiritual stakes are highest there. Ghazali, and the tradition he represents, believe that food physically becomes part of you. If it's from unlawful earnings, it literally builds your flesh and blood. There's a stark saying, all flesh grown from haram, the fire is more worthy of it. Kulula min nabate min haramin fenaru evlabihi. So the purity of your body, your very being, is directly tied to the purity of your earnings, especially what you eat. It connects ethics directly to biology and spirituality.
That is intense. Okay, finally, let's touch on maybe the trickiest area. The politics of wealth. How did Ghazali advise dealing with unjust rulers, the Zalim Sultanlar?
This gets into the complex issue of Anatud Zalim aiding the oppressor. It's a really practical ethical dilemma.
Because their wealth might be tainted.
Exactly. Early on, scholars felt it was often okay to deal with rulers because state funds were generally seen as legitimately acquired through, say, acceptable taxes or spoils of just war.
But that changed.
Later scholars, like the one mentioned in the sources, Yusuf Sanki al-Mardini, observed the shift. They argued that by their time, the majority of wealth held by many rulers came from oppression, force, taxes, confiscated property, bribery, illegitimate sources.
So the ruling had to adapt.
Right. When the source of the ruler's wealth became predominantly unlawful, the ethical guidance shifted. It became strongly discouraged, mekruh, or even forbidden, haram, to engage in business with them, accept gifts, take government contracts.
Because doing so would effectively prop them up.
Yes, it would aid their oppression, legitimize their unjust rule, and implicate you in it. It was about protecting the community's moral and spiritual integrity, even if it meant economic hardship.
So, wrapping this all up, Ghazali's framework is really about putting spiritual integrity first, always, before profit, before convenience.
Absolutely. And the core message that echoes down the centuries is the need to move beyond just mere legal compliance, ticking the boxes, and actively strive for ihsan. that spiritual excellence, that extra measure of grace and generosity in all dealings.
That extra bit isn't just good manners. It's seen as a spiritual investment.
Investment in your ultimate outcome, yes.
So what does this all mean for us navigating our world today?
Well, it leaves us with a pretty profound question, doesn't it? If Al-Ghazali's right, even partly, that the smooth functioning of our global economy kind of relies on spiritual blind spots, on ghaflat and harz,
Yeah.
then how do we pursue genuine ethical purity, both adalah and ihsan, within a system that seems in some ways built on the very poison he warned about? Do you have to disengage, or can you find a way to operate ethically within it?
What level of compromise, maybe, is unavoidable just for society to keep functioning? Where do you draw the line between participating and being complicit?
That's the question, isn't it? How do you define success? Is it accumulating financial capital or preserving spiritual capital? It forces you to think about what wealth truly means.